Hello everyone, Tim here. With the 6.0 job trailers likely coming out within a month or so, I wanted to put a list of changes that I wanted to see for all the jobs in Endwalker. Kind of like a wish list, if you will. Now there's definitely jobs that are in the game that I currently don't play on a high level. There are some that I do. So it'll just kind of be like a personal opinion on what I think each job could use or something they could improve in their gameplay. I'm going to leave Sage and Reaper out at the end of the video because since we don't really have too much information, it's really hard to speculate a ton about what these new jobs bring. So I'll probably just give out like some generics, what I'd like to see about these two. Nothing too crazy since we really don't have a lot to go off of at the moment. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the jobs that I have the most knowledge of, which are the casters. So starting with my main, we're going to start with the Red Mage. I overall feel like the Red Mage is actually in a very good state. DPS feels good, the rotation flows pretty well, and I have always liked the caster slash melee combo burst of the job. I think it's a very unique identity for the job. That said, I do not want to see another finisher tacked onto the end of the burst combo like Scorch was done in Shadowbringers. The biggest change I want to see is Embolden having the ticking potency removed, so when you start the combo or you start your Embolden, it ends up starts at 5 and then it drops down to 4 to 3 to 2. It just, to me, this is unnecessary and it just feels bad for the Red Mage, as most Red Mages can't take advantage of the buff when it's the strongest. So I want them to just go and just remove that completely. I'm totally fine with it keeping the whole physical DPS given instead of just a flat percentage. I think that's something unique. I mean, they could take that out as well and I'd be okay with it, but honestly the ticking portion of it going down is the worst part about it. I'd also like to see some more supportive actions for the Red Mage. Maybe something like an increased healing, increased buff, like how Mantra works for monks, just allowing some more flexibility and bringing other jobs to fill that buff. So instead of bringing a monk, you could bring the Red Mage to fulfill that role. Of course, I do want to see Red Mages get some new flashy attacks, which we did see one in the benchmark trailer, but I'm not really sure what the attack is. It kind of looks like a thunderish based dot, or maybe some upgraded version of Contre 6. It's really hard to tell on that, so I'm not going to really predict where that's going to go. But I also like to see the Red Mage's attacks have new visual effects, like just an upgraded visual effects, honestly, for a lot of jobs in Endwalker, especially a lot of the casters, since they're using a lot of the same from Heavensward and Red Mage from Stormblood. There hasn't really been too many changes in visualization, so I'd like to see, I thoroughly expect Jolt 3 to come into play, but I don't know, we'll see. But those are really the two biggest things that I want to see, is Embolden, remove that ticking duration, and give the Red Mage some more supportive actions, and of course some new abilities. Alright, and the next job on the caster list is going to be the Summoner. Now this is one of the jobs that I like to see a lot of changes for. I think we're going to get a pretty big overhaul of a lot of systems for Summoner. I think they're going to get pretty much like a Shadowbringers rework for like how Machinist got a Shadowbringers rework. I think it's going to be pretty huge. But I don't think we're going to get exactly what I want. But originally, if anybody's seen any of my previous videos, I wanted to focus more on the damage of the Summoners coming from the pets itself. However, with the benchmark trailer that I did a breakdown on before of the Summoner changes, it does look like that the Summoner is going to be imbuing the pet attacks instead, which in theory is going to resolve the biggest problem that I've always mentioned with the class, which is the pet ghosting. If this is the route they are going to go, that would definitely clear that pet ghosting issue, which is huge for the class right now, and I really want them to make sure that gets fixed. That's pretty much the number one thing. So they're going a little bit of a different route than I'd like them to go with it, but hey, if this fixes it, it is what it is in that regards. So since they are going to go this route, maybe something like swapping between more summons and fights is going to be something they'll use. Then maybe we'll get some more eggies, like maybe we'll be able to summon like Leviathan or Shiva or something like that. I think that'd be really cool, where instead of it just being like you just summon one and just kind of summon and forget, maybe be able to swap between a bunch of, you got like for some things, Garuda for some things, then you bring in these new ones. I think that'd be really cool for the job. I'd also like to see them add another demi summon. I really think the Phoenix and Shadowbringers was a really good idea, and I think adding another one would be really good, because then they can kind of have it be like, in a sense, where the bard can choose different songs whenever they want to. Obviously, there's usually a set rotation that they'll go through, but being able to like summon certain things, like for example, you're gonna have your burst phase come out, you bring out Bahamut. You need some AoE and maybe some small healing, you bring out Phoenix. And then if they were going to have a new summon, I'd love for them, a new demi summon that is, I'd love for them to bring out Alexander. I think some of the things that we could use for Alexander would be Chastising Heat would be an ability, Mega Holy, and then of course its big Enkindle ability will be Divine Judgment. Maybe add some of the, like some shielding maybe in there or something like that, since, you know, Titan kind of doesn't really do anything, so Demi Alexander could have maybe some shields that would help. That'd be kind of cool. So, I mean, yeah, Yoshi P did say that Summoners was going to be at a big breaking point, so I do expect this one will have a lot of changes. So, I guess Summoner rework again. Alright, and we'll wrap the casters off with the Black Mage. Now, this is one I don't do a ton of endgame content with, but Black Mage in Shadowbringers has been in a really good spot. As with the other casters, I do want to see some new spell animations with the Black Mages. They've been pretty much operating since the same spell since Heavenward. So I don't see, I want to see some changes, and it does look like the benchmark trailer does show that they are going to get at least a new fire spell, at least from the looks of it. So that's already kind of good. One thing I do want to see is them simplify some of the names. You know, if we get Fire 1, Fire 2, 3, and 4, etc. It could kind of get a little bit overwhelming, especially for new players. Not wanting, you think, you know, Fire 2 is a better ability, you should use that normally, but really it's like a AoE form. Honestly, why don't they just change the naming scheme to be Fire 2 be Viagra, and then Blizzaga for Blizzard 2. But honestly, to be honest, they could probably just get rid of it completely and change it to be where Fire 2 just upgrades into Flare, and they just use Flare for your AoE rotation, and then Blizzard 2 upgrades to Frost. I mean, Frost. I think it's the ability of Frost or Frozen. I don't remember. But you know, just upgrading it, that would, one, that'd free up some spacing bloat for the job and allow for new things. One thing I can maybe think that maybe they want to do for Black Mages is maybe give them another empowering mode. Since it does seem like they're kind of dipping into Void with Foul and with Xenoglossy. Maybe they add something where like they can get into a certain mode for a certain period of time, where they do some crazy Void-like damages. They're like some huge numbers. Like they pretty much go like berserk in a sense. I think that'd be kind of cool, where they just like do some kind of Void things and they go back to their normal rotation. Honestly though, as long as the playstyle is the same, where you're rewarded for being accurate in your placement and being able to keep uptime of Fire of Wars, that's the big core thing of the job, and that's the one thing I'd like to see. But honestly, I'm a little worried that this is one that they may mess up, so I'm really hoping that they don't, because I think it's in a really good spot. Alright, so let's go ahead and shift gears away from caster DPS, and let's talk about healers. Now, healers probably need a bigger talking point than just what I'm about to say. I'm no expert in healing, so I'm not going to make a separate video, but I'm sure there's definitely some people out there that have way more knowledge on the healer role and can have a little bit more input than I can. But, you know, starting with the healer that I play the most, we're going to start with Astrologian. Now, we do know that Astrologian is going to get a pretty substantial rework in Endwalker, since they are going to be transitioning to a pure healer role. Now that they're going to go ahead and double down on the pure healers versus barrier healers. Now, obviously, Nox Sect is still going to be something very highly used as Astrologian, as it is a big implication to lore. And it does look like they're going to use that kind of like a Divine Benison, how the White Mage has Divine Benison. Can be used in like the same fashion. For me, I really can't really say what new heals or what new abilities would the Astro get that I'd be okay with. But my main thing is, as long as they keep the core gameplay identity there, I do love the ability where you can predict heals or predict damage and then set your heals up for future, kind of like how Earthly Star uses, and as well as Horoscope. You know, just being able to then set things up so that you know, hey, I'm going to have this ability that's going to happen in like 30 seconds. I'm going to go and prep the Earthly Star, so that as soon as that damage goes out, I can instantly snap my team back to full. I think that's a big identity thing for the job, and I do hope they continue to fulfill that role going forward with it. As long as I keep that, that's all that I want to see. Alright, and then next on the healer list, let's go ahead and talk about Scholars. Now, like I mentioned with the Summoners, pet coasting is an issue, but it's not as big of an issue for Scholars, though I'm going to mention it. I do want them to go ahead and make sure they fix that for Endwalker, so that we don't have to ever worry about pet ghosting there. As for changes on that and how they would implement that, I have really no idea how they can really work it. It would be kind of the same, I guess, absorb the fairies abilities, and that the summoner or a scholar, excuse me, cast it. So we'll see where they go with that. As for changes though, I do really want the Scholar's fairies to actually be more impactful. Right now, the fairies, like, you just summon it, it places it like in the middle of the room and just kind of forget about it. It just, to me, just seems like that's a big part of their identity, and it doesn't really have a lot of uses. Especially since the only thing that you use the fairy gauge for is the fairy tether, which to me the other AoE just completely is too weak. It has too long of a cooldown and just doesn't really heal really well. So for me, it's kind of just useless. The only thing you really use your fairy gauge for is fairy tether to just kind of throw on a tank at some point when they're taking consistent damage. And then also Seraph, something that's supposed to be huge for the class at level 80. It ends up being kind of like, yeah, it's a CD. It kind of gives you some really good healing potency plus some more shields. But to me, it just seems like, again, you summon it and just use the abilities and then forget about it. To me, it's just they need some more work on the fairy gauge and the actual fairies themselves. Make them be a little bit more impactful for the job. I think everything else about the job is pretty good, and I'm curious to see where they go with this one. I really don't have too much to go off on this one. It was my buried healer of choice when I was playing before I really switched over to kind of learning Astro and then really loving Astro. So I definitely want them to bring back the gameplay I used to love with the Scholar from before. But any Scholar mains out there, please let me know. I really curious to see what you guys have to say about what you want to see for the Scholar. Alright, and finally the last healer on this list is the White Mage. Now, this is the one I play the least amount of, mainly because it's just too boring to me. It's very basic healing, nothing too special about it. I mean, all their healing is off of GCD, so, you know, keep spamming that glare. That's pretty much all it pretty much boils down to. Use OGCDs when you need to, and just keep DPSing. Now, while I do like how the White Mage is the easiest healer to pick up for new players, I want a better identity for the White Mage instead of just really just spamming glare and using OGCDs. I think, you know, there needs to be something set up for the White Mages there. I also think they should remove the Cure 1 trait. It's better to just have Cure 1 upgrade to Cure 2. That frees up some bloat, as well as helps new players understand that Cure 1 doesn't necessarily need to be used anymore, and you know, you move forward with that. I think that's something that definitely needs to happen. As far as that, that's really the only thing I got for it, so I don't really have too much of a wish list here. So White Mages, let me know in the comments what you think. You know, tell me I'm completely wrong. That's perfectly fine. I really don't play this job as much, so please let me know. I'm really curious to see what everybody else's thoughts about a White Mage and what you'd like to see going forward. Alright, and let's head back to range DPS and let's talk about the physical range DPS, starting with Dancer. I think Dancer is a ton of fun to play, and the dance system is very unique to the job. I really do like the way they implemented Dancer into 14, and I want to see them improve on some of the things in that aspect. I definitely want to see some more dances in Endwalker, which it does look like we may be getting at least one, looking at that benchmark trailer, but you know, I want to have some more unique dances. Maybe instead of just the DPS buff of standard two-step, standard step, and technical step, you know, maybe give us something a little bit more different. Like, for example, maybe one that increases spell speed and skill speed, or maybe one that does crit increases, or maybe a dance that increases maybe specifically melee DPS, or one that can physical DPS or magic DPS, etc. Like, I feel like there's a lot to go on that, and they can maybe just always be rotating through a bunch of dances. Maybe depending on who their tether partner is, maybe instead of just maybe upgrade standard step to be, hey, I'm tethered to a melee DPS, I'm gonna go ahead and have I use my physical step dance, and vice versa with magic, or whatever the case may be. I think that they could definitely do a lot more. I mean, obviously dances are the dancer's main identity, so I think that's something that I would like to see more of. Really, the only thing in regards to rotation wise, I think improvisation needs to be adjusted. It just feels really weak. Plus, if you're in that group where somebody steps out of your improv and you get that random number instead of it being on a 10-digit one, you almost feel like you have to cap full Esprit gauge in order to then get yourself back in a good situation. So I would like to see that fixed. Other than that, I think Dance is in a really good spot to add some more dances, maybe another big attack, and call it a day. I think they're in a really good spot. Alright, next on the list of range physical DPS, let's go and talk about the OG range physical DPS, which is the Bard. Now, Bard is another DPS job on my list that I'm keeping a big eye out for some pretty decent changes. currently they just feel underwhelming to play compared to the other two. And while I do enjoy the rotation of being able to choose your songs and be able to, you know, your rotation changes depending on what song you're playing, I think the biggest change that we do need to see is on Apex Arrow. Apex Arrow is pretty underwhelming. You pretty much just wait till the gauge is full and then just use it and forget about it. I want to see some changes there. I also want to see a better AoE rotation for the job. Instead of spamming quick knock, I think they need to bring back wide volley, or at least give them like maybe like you go quick knock into wide volley into something else, so that you have like a 1-2-3 AoE rotation instead of just spamming quick knock and waiting for, was it Shadow Bite? I think a Shadow Bite is their random one that they get, level like 72 or something like that. So, and again, it's just to me, it's just their AoE rotation is kind of really boring. So I'd like to actually see a actual AoE rotation. Also, in my opinion, I actually really liked Foe Requiem back in Stormblood, where it allowed you to drain your mana and buff the party. I think that was something really cool. It kind of gave the bard something to kind of play around, be like, hey, you know, we have a little bit of a small burst phase here. We can go and let me pop this song, drain my mana while I'm doing more damage and boost my party damage. You can kind of play around with it. I think there was a lot to do, a lot with that particular song that was very unique, and I'd love to see that song come back. Oh, and I almost forgot, Bard's song should definitely buff the Bard itself. It feels really bad when you play your own song and you don't even benefit from the buff. So I definitely think that's something that they should definitely change in Endwalker. Alright, and last on the range DPS list is the Machinist. Now, I don't play this job quite a bit, but I do really enjoy the rework that it did get in Shadowbringers. I definitely love to see the more robots and mechs being pulled out, as long as other guns for the Machinist. It does look like they're going to get a shotgun in the benchmark trailer, but you know, obviously all that can just anything I mentioned benchmark trailer, just so you know, I've been kind of mentioning it but never really saying it. Anything I mentioned from the benchmark trailer is obviously subject to change, so anything I said prior and anything I say anything forward that I've referenced from the benchmark trailer definitely is not set in stone and could easily be changed. But you know, it does look like they are going to get a shotgun from that looks of it. Other than the identity of more guns, more robots, I really don't have any other ideas of where they can go. One thing I do think maybe they could get maybe is a small party buff, maybe not like a super strong one, but because they are in the range physical role and their DPS is already going to be lowered compared to other selfish DPS jobs like Samurai and Black Mage, maybe they get something just to kind of give a small buff to kind of boost their damage just a little bit, because I do feel like their damage is a little bit lacking to be a selfish DPS of the role. So I know, you know, we've always said that the range DPS will always have a shorter damage because they are, or lower damage because they can move in DPS at the same time, but I still feel like their damage is a little bit weak. So that's just me personally. Also, one thing I almost forgot to mention, I can't remember the buff. It was explosive charge, I think is what it is, where they throw the charge on the target and after so many seconds it bursts. I want to see some changes to that, kind of like how Ninja had its whole rework done, where instead of it just being a time-based attack, it was a certain amount of, I think it was like a charge, like it was like 5 or 6 charges, and it was based on how many attacks you do. I think that they can use that for not only for Machinists but other jobs in the game, allowing for, you know, that helps for like high ping players to be able to still make sure they get their damage into those windows without having to have any issues with lag. I think that's something that we'll definitely see going forward, for not only for, you know, explosive charge on the Machinist, but for other jobs as well. There's a lot of applications that can be used. So that's kind of what I think for Machinist, but let me know what y'all think, because again, this is a job I don't play a ton, and I'd be curious to know what y'all think for Machinist. Alright, and now we are starting to kind of get into the territory of jobs that I don't play a ton. We are going to go ahead and switch over to talking about tanks. So let's start with the tank that I do play the most, which is Gunbreaker. I honestly think Gunbreaker plays pretty well. It's hard to come up with any really new things to add to the job. I think the whole DPS feel of the job is really enticing for DPS players looking to step into the tank position. So I think that's really cool. Maybe, and honestly, this is just for all the tanks, giving them a new job combo instead of just always being 1-2-3, 1-2-3. They're very basic in their rotations. But I do want to see some more. All the tanks get a new combo of some sort, just to kind of give them something new. Other than that, maybe a new finisher, but honestly, as long as they keep the fast-paced gameplay of the job, I'm totally happy with it. So yeah, keep up with Gunbreaker, keep it the same, just add some new abilities, and I think we'll be good. Alright, so the next tank on the list is the poster boy for this expansion, which is Paladin. Now, I do think that this is one job that actually is going to get quite a bit of changes, mostly because it is on the poster of the expansion. But also, I think it kind of could use some decent changes to it. Biggest changes that I'd like to see for sure is getting rid of some of the button bloat that is on the job. It is one of the most button-heavy jobs in the game. It has so many buttons that have been actually pruned a little bit, and I still think they can go a little bit further. So I do expect changes in that. I do kind of want to see some more holy spells. Maybe something where the paladin maybe infuses his blade in like holy light for like a super strong attack. Confiteor is kind of just, it is what it is. It's a nice ability, but the requisite cast, the requisite like rotation following up with it needs to kind of be adjusted in my opinion. And also as a paladin who has a sword and board, you're not really good at main tanking in the game. Now, to clarify, they can main tank just fine, but just other tanks do main tanking better because they just have more abilities in their kit. So I'd like to see some more better defensive options for the paladin. From the benchmark trailer, it does look like that Sheltron is going to be upgraded to their shield. Of what I can think is going to happen, kind of like how the Dark Knight has the Blackest Night. So something very similar to that, since it did show that in the benchmark trailer. Obviously, that's just me completely speculating on that, but I do really think Sheltron is kind of weak, and it does need to be upgraded in some fashion. So I would love to see a TBN-like ability on the Paladin to give them way more defensive options in their kit. But overall, lowering the button bloat, increase defensive options, and add some more holy spells, and I'll be okay with the job. I'm looking really forward to seeing what they do with the Paladin this expansion. Alright, next on the list for tanks is our edgy boy, the Dark Knight. Now, this used to be the tank I used to play mostly before Gunbreaker came out, and I still really enjoyed playing this job. Biggest changes that I do want to see are, again, kind of lean back to my first point of more combos and more finishers. Dark Knight, again, is really the 1-2-3 rotation for sure out of any of the tanks, so its rotation is very boring, but I definitely want to see some more in there. I know the majority of the job is balancing mana and using as many edges and floods for more damage, but I also miss the empowering dark arts abilities that we had before Shadowbringers. I kind of want them to bring that back, but I'm likely going to guess they're probably never going to bring that back. So one thing I do want to see them bring back is Scourge. I think that with showing that the Gunbreakers dot as well as other jobs getting dots it is able to work, so I definitely think they should bring it back. It just gives them something else to maintain instead of just being mindlessly bored using 1-2-3 all the time. So again, kind of give us a better combo, give us some more finishers, and go ahead and bring back Scourge and Dark Arts. That's what I'd like to see. And finally, the tank that I barely play. Let's go ahead and talk about Warrior. So honestly, I don't really have a wish list or anything really to predict on this one, since I don't really play this job a lot. I think my input is very minute. I mean, anything outside of inner release to me is just boring, but overall I find the job pretty boring to begin with. So honestly, I think since the identity of the Warrior is like a raging berserker, I would love to see them kind of like look into that identity and figure out how can we make that be a little bit more common. So I think that'd be awesome, but honestly, I really don't have any wish list items for this one. So Warrior mains, let me know what you want. I'd love to hear what you guys would like to see changes for your Warrior job. And finally, let's go ahead and talk about the last set of jobs in the game for DPS, which is the melee DPS. Starting with the Monk. Now, I do love the changes Monk got with Grease Lightning and everything in Shadowbringers. I do kind of want to see the Monk's combos get updated with more flashy animations and, obviously increasing potency, as they've pretty much had the same combo since Realm Reborn. So I definitely want to see some changes there. They do appear to be getting an AoE Tornado kit, or tornado kick, excuse me, in the benchmark trailer, which makes a lot of sense. I do also want to see some changes to six-sided star. You know, just instead of it maybe reducing the GCD and just using it whenever the boss is going to be untargetable, maybe just increase the CD on it and just allow it to be used in the burst window. Something along those lines. Also, give the monk more chakra options. I think really just kind of spamming the one to use Forbidden Chakra or the AoE one for AoE, to me it just seems kind of boring. So I think, you know, they can maybe develop a little bit more on that. I think Monk is kind of at a point where they're going to have to maybe kind of really start thinking about doing some pretty just substantial reworks on it, if they can't figure out what they want to do with the job. So yeah, but I mean, I think those changes will at least help before they have to do like a full rework on it. All right, and next on the melee list is going to be the Dragoon. Now, I don't really have too big of a wish list for Dragoons. There's only a couple things I would like to see for sure. One is their AoE rotation. Should definitely refresh Disembowel. It seems kind of odd that they have to imply it and then they have to do a single target rotation to reapply it. To me, just, you know, just let it just refresh it. They've already done it where the Dragon Cage gets points. Go ahead and just have Disembowel refresh its duration too. You know, get some more animation for the combos, as again they've kind of had the same combo animations for quite a while now. The one thing I do want to see the Dragoons get is they actually get, after Blood of the Dragon, they actually are allowed to summon a pet dragon to fight with him for a little bit as like a cooldown. You know, kind of like how Dragoons were in FF11. I think they can make the buff be very similar to like the Machinist's Queen, where it kind of just, you summon it in, it does some damage, and then at the very end of its duration, it does a big attack, and then it leaves, and you just rebuild up. I think this would be really awesome, especially since we are seeing Estinian in the trailer, or in the teaser trailer for the expansion, fighting alongside Phaedra. I think that'd be kind of just something really cool to be as like their level 90 ability, where they summon a Dragon Brood to come and fight for them, come and fight alongside them for a little bit. I think that'd be really cool. All right, and leaving the last two together on this one, because I really don't play any of these two, Samurai and Ninja. We'll start with Samurai. I think they have a little bit of button bloat. They're in the other job I'd like to see trimmed up a little bit. I do see that they are going to get like an AoE ability for meditation stacks in the benchmark trailers, so that's kind of cool. But other than that, maybe they do something alongside of like kind of like how Demon Slayer has breathing techniques. I really don't know what else to really add to Samurai. I think they're the most approachable melee DPS job, but to me I just don't really like melee DPS to begin with, and this is definitely one that I don't really have a lot of gravity to. So let me know what you guys think about Samurai. And finally, let's go and wrap the main jobs with Ninja. I think this job is pretty well balanced after Shadowbringers. I think they're in a very good spot. I really don't want to see too much change because I don't want them to screw it up. I think their combos are good. Their spells and abilities are really good. I'd maybe get some updated animations. So, you know, Ninja players, let me know what you guys think. Again, these last two are just kind of ones that I don't really have too much to say about them. All right, and with that said, that's going to take care of all of the current jobs that are currently in the game. So let's go ahead and just toss out some predictions or things that I'd like to see about Sage and Reaper, more or less on like a gameplay level, so nothing like specific about abilities. So we'll start with the Sage. I kind of like this job to be a little bit more of the greedier DPS of the healer of the groups. It kind of get that vibe with the Nolus, kind of like being like guns and just wanting to do damage. So I kind of would like to see them be able to be a little bit more greedy on the DPS side. Maybe like, you know how White Mage is kind of greedy, has been the greedy DPS before, spamming Glare. Maybe this job will be the new one, but instead of spamming Glare, it'll be whatever the auto attack or cast ability that the Sages get. I'd love to see that. Maybe something that they can do with since there's 4 Nolus, maybe they have like these Nolus can like tether to 4 players and doing healing or something. That'd be kind of cool. But honestly, because Sage was one that we never would have predicted for how the job was look like to begin with compared to Sages from previous Final Fantasy games, I kind of just want them to go wild with this job. I think it'll be a ton of fun, and I can't wait to play it. Alright, and lastly, the Reaper. Now, this one we have barely seen any information on it, so I don't really have a lot to go off of. But just to kind of give some ideas of what I would like to just see as gameplay-wise, I definitely want this job to be a little bit more on the selfish side of melee DPS. Maybe not as far as Summoner, or sorry, excuse me, Samurai, but I want to definitely see them be like the next one below it. Like maybe give them one party buff and the rest is just they're just greedy DPS. As far as abilities, you know, I can't really say anything. Honestly, as long as they play as ragey farmers with an avatar that boosts them, it's going to be a ton of fun to play, and I can't wait to be swinging around a scythe. I think that's going to be really cool. Alright, well that's every job in the game plus the 2 new ones that are coming out. So I think at this point that kind of covers my wish list of changes and updates that I want to see for these jobs in the games. Honestly, every job is really well balanced, and I have no doubt that, you know, we're going to have any issues in Endwalker about things not being balanced. So, but at this point now, we just have to wait for the trailer. They did say that the next live letter, which would be in sometime around September, would be where they would likely show these type of things. That's when they slated it, so I'm really looking forward to that live letter. So once that drops, there's really the hype for the expansion is going to really start going. I think that's kind of when I'll start kind of figuring out what job I want to level first and what I want to main. I have been kind of talking with my group and seeing what we're going to do, and this might be the expansion where I actually change off of a caster DPS and maybe play a healing role, because I really like the aesthetics and the designs of the Sage. So we'll see, but I think, you know, the job action show will definitely let me know which job I'm leveling first. Even if I do main Sage, I think I'm going to play a job that's going to start with the story. I definitely want to see the story first. So I do want the job action trailer to kind of give me an idea of where I want to maybe start my journey in Endwalker. That being said, I do plan on streaming a watch party for the job changes, you know, on my Twitch channel. So whenever that date comes around, I will definitely be going live when it does go, so we can watch it. And if you'd like to hang out with me, I'll put my Twitch link in the description below. Don't forget to you can always follow me on Twitter, as I do post updates on what I am doing, as well as post when I do go live on Twitch. I know lately it's been a little bit barren on the Twitchverse. I do apologize for that. I did leave a post on my Twitter. I won't say it here because this video is already going to be super long. So if you'd like to check that out, you can check over on my Twitter. You can see my post on why there's been a little bit slower on uploads as well as on streams. So I do again apologize for that. But anyway, if you do enjoy this video, please consider supporting for free by just clicking the like button, as well as subscribing and sharing this video. Let me know in the comments below what changes you want to see for your favorite job. And with that being said, thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.